Hey y'all, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Sharon, aka my Kenyan Puff, and today I am going to be sharing an update on my microlocks. As you can tell, they are much older, longer than the last time you saw them here at 2 months, so we have a lot to catch up on. I do have some questions from you from Instagram, so I'll be answering those at some point in the video, and we will talk about hair first and we can catch up on life later on if you're keen. In case this is your first time on my channel, I do have a detailed video about my microlocks, including installation, cost, how much time it took, but I also have an FAQ in the description box down below. In the way of maintenance, what have I been doing for my hair since I got my locks? This has largely not changed very much. For the last almost 2 years, I have used 2 products on my hair: shampoo and rose water. That's it. There was a point I tried mixing water with a bit of like tea tree oil or some essential oils for my scalp, but I stopped doing that. In terms of my washing frequency, I would say it's been anywhere between every 3 to 4 weeks, which we will be talking about. And then in terms of reties, they've been every 6 to 8 weeks. I find that as my locks have gotten older, the reties have moved from 6 weeks to more so 7 or 8 weeks. So generally that's my retie schedule. In terms of my day-to-day, I will spray my scalp and my hair with rose water as needed. I sleep on a satin pillowcase. And yeah, that's my routine in a nutshell. I will talk about shampoos and like the products in a different video, and I can obviously share an updated wash day routine as well if that's something you're interested in seeing. So let's get into the issues I've experienced with my locks in my journey so far. So the first would be about lint. So I would say it's largely not so bad. I haven't done a good sweep through of my hair, but we have a fluffy one in the house. We have a dog, so there's a lot of fur everywhere. There's just, you know, picking up things from clothes, and I probably said this in the other video, I'm not very good for taking the lint out, but I will ask my flatmate to just look through my hair and help me out. It's not too bad, and maybe when I do the up close of the locks you can let me know. The second issue is build up. So there's a point when my scalp seems like as it grows out, I don't know if when you've gotten braids before or extensions, you know the way like at the base you get some build up as your hair starts to grow out, and in my case it's most likely just my sebum because I'm not really using any products on my scalp. I tied to 2 potential causes. The first being the frequency of my washing. I could do a whole lot better with that, and that's something I am changing now, to wash my hair more frequently. Number 2 would be, okay, so actually 3 reasons. Number 2 would be product. So the thing about locks that's quite different from like your open natural hair is you want your hair to actually be stripped, to be clarified. And yes, that you can find products that have that delicate balance where they clarify your hair very well but also keep it like hydrated. But I think there is a product, there's a shampoo I had been using that I don't think was doing a very good job at clarifying, and I think my wiggle way out of using that product up was washing my hair more times, as opposed to having a product where you can do 1 or 2 washes or maybe 3 and it's clean and squeaky. So again, we'll talk about shampoos in a different video, but that's my second reason why I think my scalp had quite a bit of build-up. And the third is braiding and banding, which I feel like is its own separate issue. So that's a good segue into that. So if you've watched my Microlocks wash day routine, I'll link it up above. I had been braiding and banding my locks since installation based on the advice of my... Actually, did Karen recommend it? I think, yeah, we did it to start. Karen is in Nairobi. I'm currently in the UK. So every few months when I do go home, she'll be the one to retie my hair, but I also get my hair retied here. So I have two stylists. And when my hair journey started out, I was braiding and banding with every wash, and I think I've talked about that in detail, why it's particularly recommended within the sister lock community to maintain the uniformity of your locks, to prevent them from unraveling, especially when you have new starter locks, is to just maintain their integrity. So I had been doing that very consistently, and as my hair got longer, during one of my appointments, she mentioned that I had some buildup in my hair, and it seemed as though like I hadn't really been getting the dirt and the shampoo to rinse off clean. Now, while this is not necessarily because braiding and banding would do that to your hair, sometimes I'm washing my hair in a rush, so that was probably more so my technique. But sometimes, like even when I had open natural hair, I remember people who would wash their hair in twists and braids, myself included. One of the things people would mention is like when it comes to rinsing your hair out, you feel like you've not been able to properly rinse out all of the product. So I feel like braiding and banding was getting in the way of the cleansing or like fully cleansing my scalp. But also it's just time consuming. It's a bit of a faff. Like if I just, it adds an extra 15, 20, sometimes 30 minutes to my wash day, which is largely very like short and sweet. And as I've not really been paying attention to how mature my locks are getting, I'm getting to the place where I'm like, do I still need to keep braiding and banding? Can I get away with not doing it? There's a point late last year, about 18 months into my journey, when I decided I'm gonna wash my hair open. I can't be bothered. So for about 2 or 3 washes, I did not braid and band. And then I had an appointment with my loctician in February of this year, and there was one of my locks that was thinning, and it was interesting because it was thick at the base, thin on the shaft, and then thick at the ends again. So that got me really worried, and I was just wondering, is it because I didn't braid and band? Maybe not, I don't know. But I got a bit worried, so I started braiding and banding again. So that's been my tumultuous relationship with braiding and banding. I wish I had the bandwidth to have been paying better attention to, you know, the difference between the two, and like performing a proper experiment on, is not braiding and banding the culprit? But yeah, if you have microlocks, if you have locks in general, have you ever braided and banded? Is that something you do? When do you stop? Help! Because I washed my hair yesterday. So it's freshly washed, and I did not braid and band. So I'm just living life on the edge. And it's one of those things where it's like, I follow people who swear by braiding and banding, and I follow people who've never braided and banded since they got their locks installed. So I don't know guys, I don't know. Yeah. It's the other thing in terms of confirming that that oils at this point in my journey don't quite agree with me. I remember when I went for a retie appointment, and afterwards she put some oil on my scalp, and when I went home, my scalp was on fire. Like, it took a while, but like it got really itchy, and I just realized that I may have a fairly sensitive scalp towards oils, and that's why I've just been using rose water on my scalp. That may change in the future. I may explore like using serums or oils or things like that, but at this point I do not deep condition my hair. I do not condition, I do not apply leave-in, I don't apply oil, nothing. It's just shampoo and rose water that I've used for the last almost 2 years. And now at this point, when I'm evaluating my hair routine and even thinking through the hair routine of my clients, if you don't know, I offer one-on-one hair clarity calls where we walk through your routine from start to finish, assess it based on like your lifestyle, the products you use, and I can give you a better idea of how we can make any tweaks to make your routine work for you. And one of the things that I like to lead with when thinking about my own routine and that of my clients is not immediately jumping from
this product doesn't work, let's buy a new thing.
It's always assessing, am I using the product the way it's intended? Am I using it as often as I need to? Which is why in my case, I'm just like, I probably just need to shampoo my hair more often before I think of the products themselves, and that's just a side tip. I will now answer your questions that you shared with me on the socials. So the first was, could you share your wash day routine and how often you do? Is it also advisable to use a conditioner? So I've talked about my routine, but I will share an updated wash day routine video if you'd like to see that, but largely similar to the one that I filmed before. I do not use any conditioner. The advice I got, especially when my locks were young and new, is to not use any oils or any conditioners on it. Initially, I was quite scared of using them, so I just followed that rule to the T. But I'm at a point where I could possibly use them, but I don't think I need to, so I've not felt the need to actually introduce conditioner into my lock routine. But everyone's different. I have micro locks. If you have traditional locks, thicker locks, you might find there's a benefit of using conditioner in your hair. I would say though, generally when your locks are starting out, because conditioners help with detangling and increasing the slip, then you're likely to be just helping your locks to unravel instead of letting them mature. If I was to give advice, I would say just give your locks some time to mature before you introduce conditioner into your routine. Which would you recommend for less dense hair? Micro locks or sister locks? So, of course, there are many differences between micro locks and sister locks. With sister locks, the installation is quite particular. The grid, the technique, the tool that's used, the person who installs the sister locks, and all sister locks are started by interlocking, if I'm not wrong. On the other hand, micro locks, they can be a variation in the grid. Anyone can install your locks. You can start them with braids, twists, interlocking. You can start micro locks in many different ways. So they're very different. And I would say if you're torn between the two, especially when it comes to density, consult a loctician. They will assess your hair and they will tell you what's best for you. Many people I know who have sister locks got them because they have finer hair and wanted their hair to be fuller, and that's obviously a process that comes with time. When your locks are first installed, they will probably look quite scalpy, but then they get to bud and thicken up and mature and fill in. So honestly, any locks would look good with any density and texture of your hair. I chose interlocking because I didn't want to worry about my hair unraveling. I wanted my locks to lock quite fast, and I wanted a fairly organized grid. And Karen was a recommendation from Christine Terre, who is a certified sister loctician. I've known her for years. She did my hair before I got microlocks. She trained Karen, and so I knew I could completely trust Karen with my hair, and to this day I still do, and I trust Christine as well. So I'll be sharing all their contacts down below. Would you advise coloring microlocks? Which is the best dye someone would use? So I think I've addressed this in a different video, but the general consensus from stylists is if you choose to dye your hair, you either dye your hair before you install the locks or you wait until your locks are mature. So that's the advice I respect, and I look at it in terms of the way I look at dyeing my open natural hair is you want to dye your hair when it's in its healthiest, strongest state. New locks are very fragile, they're not yet fully formed, they're not yet grown up, they're not settled into themselves. Dye, like relaxer, is a chemical process. It's a treatment that can affect the structure of your lock, can possibly weaken your hair, so you want to be quite careful about when you decide to dye your hair. But once again, consult a hairstylist. They will be in the best position to recommend when to dye your hair and what dye to use. That's not something I've looked into as yet because I'm not keen to dye my locks at this point, but I'll definitely look into that more and see if I can share any more information on that. How long did your locks take to start locking? Was it uniformly locking all of them? So I would say my locks started to come together quite fast, but that's because of two things, I would say. Number one is starting my locks with interlocking, because I knew this was a surefire method to get my locks to lock a bit faster than if they would with twists or braids that might unravel. The second is the texture of my hair. I have thick, kinky, extremely kinky, coarse, 4Z, all of those terminologies that we used to use. I don't know if we're still using them, but I have very coarse hair, and that lends well to locking. It's very easy. give my hair a minute and she'll be all locked up. So to answer your question, I would say I felt like they started to really take form maybe about a year in, but I feel like 18 months in is when I was like, oh, okay. Like right now, I would call my locks teen locks. I wouldn't call them mature yet. They're still not fully locked, but because the ends are still open. I don't know if I can bring you guys closer. Let's see if this is a good idea. The ends, I mean, I will get a better texture shot for you, but the ends are still open. And for some people, their locks never quite, the ends never quite close, but the body, like, it started to plump up more and take a lot of shape compared to the beginning when you could just see the curl pattern. So I would say with micro locks, sister locks, it heavily depends on the texture of your hair and the method that you use to install your locks. For me, I feel like now is when they feel like they look like locks, but that's probably been for the last couple of months. And in terms of uniformity, no. Just like your open natural hair, different parts of your hair will have different textures, different growth rates. Each individual hair strand grows at its own rate, sheds at its own rate. Its hair is just so beautiful and fascinating. So in the same way, like each lock kind of does its own thing. If you have largely uniformly textured hair, then you might find that it grows and locks at a pretty similar rate. I remember when I had open hair, my the front of my hair was much looser. The crown was also slightly looser, and then my nape was kinkier. And I feel like in terms of the speed of locking, the back of my hair has locked faster. So it seems like it mirrors how coarse or the texture of my hair that has determined how quickly it has locked. But yeah, largely I let each lock do its own thing. Another factor in terms of locking, I think I mentioned at 2 months, like I have locks in my perimeter that kept coming undone. And that's because, you wash your face, you wet this area a lot, you sweat. So I found my hairline took a really long time to lock, but it's finally locking. And obviously my hairline has shorter hair than the rest of my head. So the locks at the front of my hair are much shorter than the locks in the other parts of my head. Actually, I've just remembered that I think this is my lock here at the front. And I don't know if you can see that, but can you see that? This is what kind of happened to one of my locks, where it's like, it's thick at the root and then it starts to thin on the shaft, and then it gets thick at the base again. And I've seen that, so that was what happened to the other one. And it's a bit worrying because then it can potentially weaken and break off. But also I know that sometimes locks do that as they're in the budding phase. So I'm just gonna leave it alone for the best. But yeah, I hope that answers that question. How much was it to install your sister locks? Now, I think I've mentioned this before. I probably used dollar amounts, so it doesn't sting as much. But it was, if I'm not wrong, 85,000 Kenya shillings. And that quote was based on the length of my hair at the time, the density of my hair, the fact that I chose to interlock to start with, and obviously labor. So my hair was between 12 and 14 inches to start. I started with interlocking. It took 30 hours, or was it 36? It took 3 days to install, and I have well over 500 locks on my head. I knew from 2020 that I wanted to lock my hair, so I saved up for 2 years to install those locks. I have no regrets. I know I could have spent an eighth. I could have spent much less, could have started them on my own, could have maybe started my locks with braids or twists, but I chose interlocking for all the reasons I've said earlier on. And I chose to go to someone who was recommended to me, someone who I trust, who is knowledgeable. And when it comes to stylists, when it comes to like just people in the service industry in general, I respect the labor. I respect the labor that is managing Fluffy. I have a lot of hair. It took a lot of time. Even with my reties, they take 3 to 4 hours at a time, being done by one person. If there are 2 people, it'll be 2 hours, but still, like, when someone gives me a price for their hours, I will wiggle a bit, but in this case, I knew what I was signing up for, and I also knew that if I was in the US or in the UK, I would have paid at least twice, maybe thrice the amount. So you are getting a good deal in Nairobi. They are expensive. They are an investment. I have no regrets. I still don't miss my open hair one bit. I know people might feel differently when they get their locks, but I was very ready. Like, this was a decision I made, and I was certain that this is what I wanted. And it's honestly the best decision I made for my hair at this time in my life. The last question was, how do I start my locks and a good loctician contact? So talked all about Karen. She's my loctician in Nairobi, so check her out. I know that there's a certified Sister Locks salon in Nairobi. I think it's called Sister Locks Kenya. I'll find out and put it in the description box. I mentioned Christine as well. Yeah, those are the people I can speak to who I'm aware of. And in terms of how you start them, again, that's entirely up to you. Consult with a stylist. Life though, I don't know where to start with that one. The long and short is I have been in school for the last 8 years trying to get this degree, and I'm just now close to finishing. And while that's, you know, a separate part of my life at this point, it's just a very much a big part of my life. It's a very time consuming path that I choose, very emotionally, mentally, financially, physically involving, taxing, but also extremely fulfilling and amazing thing that I do on the day to day. But because of what it is, and because of being so much my life has been so hectic in the last few years, but I like to just come to you guys and talk about the things that I love, talk about the things that I'm passionate about, including my hair and, you know, skin and wellness. And I'm happy to be here. I feel like there's been points in this content creation journey where I didn't even feel like I could call myself a content creator because of how I was unable to be consistent with it because of this my degree. Okay, like medical students, medicine, healthcare, hey, hectic. I really struggled with feeling like I could call myself an influencer or a content creator because I just didn't show up the way that I would have loved to, as often as I wanted to. There have been many opportunities that I've turned down, that I've initiated and fallen out of because I just couldn't cope, couldn't manage that, couldn't align. Many a thing, guys. Like, I feel like that's another whole other story for another day. But still something I love, and it's something I'm deeply passionate about, and I'm just really happy to be here with you right now. Life is only going to get busier for me going into the workforce, but I'll do my best to take you along and keep engaging with you and sharing all that I know and all that I'm learning along the way. So I hope that you stick around for all of that. Thank you so much for watching. Always remember that your hair is your crown and your body is a temple. Embrace it, love it, and take care of it.